Hello, I'm Norman Robinson and welcome to Affordable Housing Matters. Today we sit down with the mayor of New Orleans to discuss the city's new affordable housing developments in New Orleans East as well as future developments in the Carrollton Riverbend and Lower Garden District. We will also discuss the current crises in the world and how it affects not only housing but our economic and social constructs in our city. We have a great show planned for you, so please stay tuned. Don't go far.
Don't just plan to retire, plan to live. An annuity helps cover your essential monthly expenses, so you're free to live the life you want. Find out how an annuity can give you lifetime income at protectedincome.org.
Hi there. Before being elected as mayor of New Orleans, when she was a city council member, LaToya Cantrell championed for the development of more affordable housing in the city of New Orleans. Currently, the city has a plan to develop vacant housing authority of New Orleans properties into new affordable housing properties. Here now to further explain her plan for these new properties and other housing opportunities is the mayor of New Orleans, the Honorable LaToya Cantrell. Madam Mayor, it's nice to have you in the studio once again.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sticking to this issue. It's a big deal for our city and for our people.
You know, there are a lot of people in need out there. And I was actually surprised that this show would become as popular as it has. But, you know, I've had elderly people walk up to me and say that we look forward to that show because we get some information, you know, that we weren't getting.
Yeah.
And, you know, prior to this show, and so.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you how you're doing, how you're weathering the pandemic.
Thank you for asking. Doing what, one day at a time.
Yes, ma'am.
But at the same time, having to forecast, consistently, you know, working with a team of leaders on every level, so that we can just stay focused. And we've been doing well. The city continues to have a steady march, you know, towards greater public health outcomes, and that's what we want, so that we can have our economy open back up, all of our kids back in school, and move the city forward.
How have you managed to do that? How have you managed to keep everybody focused in spite of all the chaos?
Oh, listen, I'm with my leadership team. I have my briefings almost every morning, twice a week. That includes every director within city government, so not just your top level leaders, but being all encompassing. Very much, if you need something, say something. My folks made me a t-shirt that says after the fact, later for that. Like, after the fact, I don't want to hear about it. So giving you space and a safe space to say what the needs are on the ground as we're listening to people, and we just stay focused. But every step of the way, when you've kind of proven that you listen and you listen to the data, you make the tough decision, and when it was the right thing to do, it just gives you the momentum and your team the momentum to keep going. So every challenge, face it head on, and we'll get through it together.
How has this changed your approach to leadership? Prior to the pandemic, it was tough, but I know it's got to be extremely difficult as a result of the pandemic.
Well, I think, you know, it's drawn us a little more closer together. Now, I've been in office, you know, May 2018, so a little over 2.5 years now. I've had 9 declared emergency disasters under my tenure. So my team has been braced from day one to face challenges head on, meet the need, and keep on moving and delivering for the citizens. So we haven't had time to look down. So we just stay focused. So it's just now, it's just, you know, a part of how we say who we are and every challenge, and we'll just get through it every step of the way.
And you talk about challenge, that leads us to the affordable housing crisis. That's been a challenge for this city for every administration since that I can remember, and I've been here since 1976. So how is COVID affecting that particular issue?
Well, I think, you know, before we jump even right to COVID, we have to recognize it was really a turning point in our community, in our city, post-Katrina. And even as it relates to our people not getting the adequate resources they needed to fully rebuild, or the road home the rental program never getting off the ground, we're still dealing with the impacts of those decisions of the past. Even as it relates to, putting a freeze on issuing bonds for affordable housing development. You remember there was a freeze on that. So all of that we're still living through it. And yes, COVID has put another layer to it, but I'm seeing a little silver lining through COVID, maybe in a way. I mean, it's given me a real ability to deal with my homeless in a way that I wasn't before. And what I mean by that is through emergency declarations, and also being able to tap into additional dollars, the state level, LHC, as well as CARES CDBG dollars for homelessness, getting, most of our people, those who we've been able to coerce to get off the street. We still have about 50, that just remain street homeless. But overall, over 500, we have been able to get off the street and even move over 217 into permanent supportive housing. So it's almost pushed us into where you have to do something, and not just the city, but all of the collective partners at the state level and at the federal level as well. And we're just using those dollars wisely. I was also able to speed up the process to expand our low barrier shelter, which would have taken me, 12 months. I was able to consolidate that and collapse it to like 6 months. So new construction or development happening, increasing bed size by 200. Even Ozanam Inn was able to provide and leverage public money for them. They're purchasing new property that will also allow them to scale up an additional 200 beds for the city. So it's been more comprehensive. It's pushed us into partnerships that were there, but where we don't have time. We have no time to waste. So I've enjoyed it, quite frankly.
So explain to our viewers what you mean when you say low bearing shelters.
Low barrier, meaning that nothing is required, so there are no barriers. So if you are single, a male or a single female, there's no barrier. If you have a pet, no barrier. If you don't have identification, no barrier.
Really?
If you, we're not telling you that you have to participate in a particular program to have shelter. So it really is alleviating the barriers that have prevented just regular people from having access to shelter and just getting off the street.
I'm often asked the question, because people watch this show, what do you do for inmates who are just released from prison with no identification, they have no driver's license, they have no gainful employment? How do you?
And that means for them too.
That means for them?
Absolutely, no barriers. So it's everybody. It's all encompassing, and really wanting to be comprehensive even in the programs that are provided or resources that are provided, again, meeting them where they are, regardless of where they are. Not everyone is ready to get immediately into permanent housing. Some are not there yet. Some have addiction disorders that we need to deal with. Some have mental health disorders that we need to deal with. And so it's really focusing on where that individual is and allowing and pushing them into the path towards resources to, again, address those needs and get them on a path to being sustainable in quality, affordable housing.
When you talk about the mental health aspect of this thing, I'm on the board of Unity of Greater New Orleans, and there are some homeless people with particular needs as it relates to their mental stability. So how do you deal with that? How do you find partners to address that particular issue? Because there are a lot of families out there suffering silently with people who have mental issues.
So you have numerous partners, whether that is NIMBY or Dr. Dunham with Metropolitan Human Health Services that are doing just phenomenal work with us. they have really been on the ground with us during this COVID situation, to where we're focusing, of course, on our residents, but now also having to focus on 12,000 evacuees that we currently have in our city. Now, we have some of our evacuees are starting to rotate out, meaning the state, they're moving them back to the Lake Charles area, but not everyone is ready for that just now. But you know, just really trying to pivot and provide those services so that, again, people can be healthy and whole. But it's an even greater level of trauma that COVID has brought on to our families, to our children as well.
You talk about bringing everybody closer together. In what way are you enjoying better relationships with these various agencies to come to some sort of positive resolution for people in need of affordable housing?
Well, see, one partner, you mentioned Unity, and we've had some issues with Unity in terms of, you know, the numbers or you know, how many people are really having access to those services. And we've been able to not only have the tough conversations, but put more skin in the game as a city, directing more of those CDBG dollars to Unity, who is a partner. So it's not just a stick, but it's the carrot as well. But us formulating those partnerships, talking every single day, not making it very, I would say, personal, with the face of an individual, a face of a family. It makes it real. So you're not just talking about numbers, you're talking about people. And I'm so engaged, you know, I am so engaged on this level with my folks. If people call me directly, residents, even last night, you know, my housing director, we're emailing with the resident who's saying that she needs a place to stay last night. And then she emails me back and said, Mayor, I'm okay for tonight, but for tomorrow I need help. So we are really hands-on in a way that I believe we were not before, but that has gotten the interest, but just gotten the results from all of our partners, because we can all do better. And It's not just isolating one or pointing the finger at one partner, but showing that collectively we can do this better, but we have to be hands-on.
It's ironic that these partnerships are working during this time of chaos. As you know, New Orleanians have always had a reputation of being disgruntled and curmudgeons and hard to get along with. But you've managed to pull this off somehow.
Yeah.
How is that?
Well, somehow, you know, emergencies and disasters, you know, and a lot of prayer for sure, but demonstrating results. Like when you get a result, meaning as we work together and we see that we can get this done, it only builds momentum. It makes people just roll kind of seamlessly. And that's what we need to do, roll in the right direction. And it's proven to be effective. We've executed over $20 million on the ground just as of May of 18. That's on affordable housing, but that's even so much more than that. I would say 652 units have been completed with an additional 846 units in pre-development right now. We are finally pushing the Pontchartrain Park, 17 lots in Pontchartrain Park that were you know, was tied to a deal way back when, but 17 lots, new construction, single family homes, affordability coming to the area in Gentilly that desperately needs it. So that's with Nora, who's the partner in that. You know, finally getting even Lake Forest Manor. We talked about seniors, you know, activating that in New Orleans East. It was senior housing pre-Katrina, sat over 15 years. You know, broke ground on that not long ago. It's coming back as senior housing. You know, even Caveman, you know, off the interstate. Caveman is named that. You know, and that's finally, you know, signed the legislation on that to get that moving. All of these are tied to affordable housing programs and projects. Hano, scatter site, finally dealing with that. We broke ground on announcing some of those projects uptown as well, in pockets that we know we have to ensure affordability. So no one's priced out. We have to get away from that. And I think that we learned our lesson when we sold all of our lots, like particularly like in Lakeview, at market rate and not allowing any affordability. So we're getting there, but most importantly to me, We've heard from the residents of this community. They stood with my administration when we went to them requesting approval of $500 million in bond sales with a portion for affordable housing. That was a big deal. And even as we're restructuring the renewal of the millage coming up at the end of this year, a portion for affordable housing. So we're listening to our people about what they want, and we're aligning the resources with those needs.
Well, let me ask you about your relationship with the legislature. I know that maybe with last year or year before, that there was some legislation aimed at curtailing affordable housing as it relates to the development of new properties. How is that going? Have you managed to, I guess, repair that relationship with the state legislature?
Well, I believe so. The thing is that we had a constitutional amendment on the ballot as well that did not pass, but it was healthy because it allowed me to go around the state and talk about affordability, although, you know, I went around the city on an affordable housing tour leading up to that amendment and also some other changes. So although it didn't pass, it kept the conversation alive and kept the work going. We were able to finally pass our inclusionary zoning ordinance for affordability, making it mandatory, voluntary, as relates to affordable housing, which was huge. And so keeping the conversation going, but it also allowed for a huge cooperative endeavor agreement with Louisiana Housing Corp., FANO, the Finance Authority of New Orleans, and the City of New Orleans, where we can finally locally access revenue bonds, leverage them also with additional public assets to get more people into homes. And then these homes that are available, all green, meaning energy efficient, you know, on utilities and the like, so that people can not only own them, but they can afford to live and in the home and accrue, you know, interest and move towards transferable wealth, because that's the ultimate goal. That's what it's all about.
Well, you have viewers out there, no doubt, listening now saying, Madam Mayor, when are these going to be available? When can I have access to all of these properties? Well,
we have some that are online right now. So what I would ask is that residents can absolutely visit NOLA.gov, and they will see all of our housing programs that are available. They're broken down, of course, multifaceted, because we have to meet the needs of everybody. And so even from shelters, you know, but even also single family homes and senior living, all of these programs, even as it relates to rental assistance. That's been a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned COVID.
Yes.
So we've activated $2.8 million on the ground for rental assistance. That's actually growing over $3 million. And then I've raised about $200,000 privately that we've also allowed folks to have for rental assistance. But $3 million we put out there for housing, meaning for mortgages, as well as getting folks into homes, first-time home buyers. So again, multifaceted, because you have to have so many tools in our toolbox to meet the needs of our folks. And one of the things now I'm excited too about, when I was a council member, I was able to pass legislation called Mo to Own.
Well, Mo to Own?
Mo to Own program. And so the thought of this was that if a resident was attending to a vacant, overgrown lot next to them now, and if they were putting in the sweat equity, putting in the resources to maintain that lot, then that will put them on a path to owning that lot, purchasing that lot. And so we're promulgating the rules my administration is right now so that we can move that program forward. We have to deal with these bring properties, putting them back into commerce as well.
So you have a multi-pronged approach.
Yes.
Now, how did your experience as an activist before you became a council member, how did your experience in Broadmoor, organizing things to allow that community to come back?
Sure.
What kind of lessons did you learn that you were able to take to the office of mayor?
Well, all of them. I really cut my teeth on the ground level, and it's proven to be effective for me every step of the way. I go back to that and I'm like, wow, thank you, community. You know, thank you for trusting in that. And we raised a lot of money and we put it to work. One, being very strategic, looking at tipping blocks. The scattershot approach it really doesn't work. So looking at areas even within our community about, you know, where the needs are the greatest, but also focusing our money, being more strategic, focusing on what our priorities are, special needs community, our residents, focusing the money on projects that are turnkey. They just need a little bit of money from the city, you know, to make it whole, but they have site control, they have everything in place. Well, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna put a little bit to turn that key. Even if it's projects that just, again, need maybe just a little bit more, 3 million to 4 million that we can execute and leverage. So it's really looking at how we can formulate partners that are doing the work, but together, combining all of our assets, we can do greater things together. So it's really going back to that spirit of partnership, not just in terms of homelessness, but just housing across the board and developing strategies to help on the ground. And that's why this Mow to Own program was so near and dear to me, because greening and cleaning is important. Getting the trash out of people's eyes are so important, and that's one of my biggest challenges still.
Yeah.
It really is. But that's why this Mow to Own program, I believe, will help us, but also getting a strategy to keep this grass cut, putting up those low barrier fencing to prevent the dumping. And one thing we're moving forward now, we're going to be identifying a couple of key locations in our city where I will say, you can go and dump.
Oh, really?
So instead of
people going out,
people going all over in all of our neighborhoods while we're trying to keep them clean, you know, here you come dumping. But if we can provide you with a legal space to dump, then hopefully that will free up the illegal dumping happening, and to where residents and communities can really start to see a better quality of life. Now, we've had to put some folks in jail for dumping, but then you know what?
Really?
It's like, yes. And then you're like, well, man, I don't want to lock up folks, you know, for nonviolent offenses, but then it's like, well, come on. There is an impact to our quality of life, and it matters too. So just trying to be strategic of, you know, you have to have the stick, but how can you create the carrot so that we can really get the results we're looking for in our city?
How did you come up with this idea of, I'm really intrigued by this, of providing people with places to dump? Is that a best practices that you picked up from some other place? Listen,
it's just, well, I have a team, I have a task force, a Tiger team. I said, look, we have to figure this out. Because this is one of our greatest challenges in the city with cleaning it up. It's getting, it really is. It's these overgrown lots, and even as the city had a lot maintenance program with limited resources, where we would go do a cut, but it's gonna grow back.
Sure.
And then it's gonna be overgrown. So Tiger team on that, I said, listen, we need to figure this out. They came back to me 3 weeks ago, having my next follow-up meeting. I said, I love this idea, let's move it along. So I will have more information about exactly where they will be. It will not be creating a toxic environment for nobody in your backyard. So don't worry about that, please. But we are trying to eliminate dumping just throughout the city where people are living.
Now, just for me, I hope you put that Tiger team on doing something about the vandals, the guys with all the spray painting and, tagging.
The tagging.
Yes.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Property all over the city.
And it costs
so
people,
ugly.
It's ugly, and it costs our business owners so much money. But the goal there is to, as soon as it goes up, we got to bring it down. So getting the business owners and creating a program to, again, not just saying business owner, you need to do this, but trying to develop that carrot to help them take that graffiti down, because the only way to stop it is to immediately hit it. We learned that from New York with the subways.
Yeah.
You know, we really did. And people, when they see things clean, they tend to keep them clean. So that's why I'm asking my people, please pick up the trash. Don't throw things on the ground in our city. We can do so much better if we just keep our city clean.
Now, what about this mentality of NIMBY, not in my backyard? How have you been able to deal with that?
That's a work in progress. That's a work in progress. How we've been able to deal with it is just be very honest about what the conditions are and what the needs are in the city. And like homelessness, for example, you know, no one wanted them to happen, or when I had to put some of our folks into hotels, for example. But having the conversation, I have to get them off the street. It's a pandemic. People are dying. So when you just, what the facts are, it's very hard for people to push back even when they want to, and it's like, wow. So you just have to let them know, engage, but move forward knowing that you're doing the right thing. But having the conversation, and even with my people in the East, I said, listen, I am not bringing homeless to you and just dumping them. That is not what's going on. But we have hoteliers that have stepped up and said, we're willing to provide this resource. And so we have to partner. And so the goal is when we bring them out, that we actually are moving them into permanent supportive housing. That is the goal, and that's what we're doing.
Last question, how are you dealing with the issue of rental assistance? I know you've got a program for that, but landlords are becoming, I guess, very anxious about not having the money to pay for their mortgage.
Well, and you really can't blame them. Again, the tenants are hurting, and the landlords are hurting as well. They really aren't in it to get rich. You know, it was to have supplemental income, provide, you know, a service to the community as well. And we do not want them to lose their property either, because then it only hurts everybody. So we have a tenant-based program that has been created with some of our partners and where the city has put money in as well. So where the tenant may not be able to cover their entire portion of the rent, well, the tenant base is that here we come with the program, we fill that gap. So we're making, again, the tenant whole because they can stay, but we're also making that landlord whole because they need the resources as well. They're a small business as well. And if their homes aren't available for us to live in, then that's yet another problem we're facing.
Well, Madam Mayor, it's always a pleasure to have you visit us.
Thank you.
And you've come bearing good tidings, and I'm sure a lot of people are bolstered by that. And as my old Baptist minister used to say, we've seen you, we've heard you, and we have been inspired by you.
Well, thank you so much.
I hope you'll be back.
All the time I'll be back. Right. Good or bad.
Thank you. We would again like to thank Mayor LaToya Cantrell for joining us today on Affordable Housing Matters. If you are seeking more information on the city's affordable housing properties and other topics to discuss on the show, please visit NOLA.gov. Also, if you would like to rewatch this or any other episodes of our program, please visit WLAE.com and click on the programming link. There you can find all of our past programs. I'm Norman Robinson, and thank you for joining me on Affordable Housing Matters. Take care.